Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bracken Outdoors Podcast. I'm Bracken of BrackenOutdoors.com, and today is another solo episode, so it'll just be me. Now, this episode I wanted to talk about something that's been on top of my mind quite a bit lately, and that's the idea of consistent skills practice. So I would say, in terms of my professional skill set for bushcraft and outdoor instruction, I have a good grasp of the basics. I'm happy with the basics, with the skills that I end up practicing quite often. So it's your basic fire lighting, shelters, quite happy with that, happy with making natural cordage, using nettle, bramble, all of the regular fibres. And I get to practice those on a near weekly basis when I have my forest school and bushcraft club sessions running and workshops here and there. But there's a point where you want to move your skills forward and start thinking about, okay, well, if I want to be able to apply myself to a higher level of skill, so to teach people and bring people up to a higher level, I'm going to need those skills myself. And to do that, you're going to need to practice. I mean, there's not very many ways of getting around that. If you want to get better at a skill, you have to practice. But it's something that's pretty difficult to do when you're in the trenches, when day in, day out, you've got either the admin for a session or you're actually delivering a session. It's difficult to take that time to practice your own skills. There are very few of us who are actually able to go out and practice every day on their own. And it's a model I'd like to work towards eventually, where I'm not delivering every day or working every day just on admin and instruction. I actually have the opportunity to spend some quality time, spend maybe like an overnight camp or something else, and actually have the time to practice skills in a big burst. But for most of us who are busy, who are trying to make a living and a go of it, it's difficult to get practice in. But what really got me thinking about skill sets and practice is Cal Newport's book, So Good They Can't Ignore You. And his central thesis in that book is that hard, deliberate practice, so he introduces the concept of deliberate practice, which is practice at a high level often, and dedication will trump passion. Now, it's good to have passion, but I agree that where he talks about the craftsman mindset, it's about someone who practices and gets better that way. And I fully agree that with good practice you can get a lot further, but it's difficult. So in this episode, I'm just going to break down my top 5 practices that are helping me push my skills further and learn more in the smallest amount of time possible. So using every little hour of time I have here and there, so rather than going out spending an entire week in the woods, which is very difficult to do with the commitments I have, it's trying to keep it down to a manageable amount that I can then do often. Which brings me down to the first of my 5 practices, which is break down and focus. So bushcraft, as many of you know, is a massive skill set. It's difficult to overemphasize how big a skill set it is. I mean, people have dedicated their entire lifetimes to just one aspect of bushcraft and still think they have ways to go. I mean, there's incredible people. I mean, like Tristan Gooley and his natural navigation. Just with natural navigation, we have like 8-9 books plus going, all just on the subject of using our natural surroundings to navigate. So if you try to practice everything all at once, you are not going to make as much progress as if you pick one specific area and go, okay, this is my focus. This is what is going to push me further at the moment, and this is the skill that I need to learn. So last year I signed myself up to run a natural cordage workshop, and so rather than practicing fire lighting or shelter building, I dedicated my skills development time, to just cordage. Just going through every single cordage material that I could think of and really practicing very often. But just that focus allowed me to make a lot of progress in a short amount of time, because it's always fresh in your mind. Rather than doing firelighting, then doing a few other skills, and then coming back to firelighting in a month, you'll almost be starting at zero. So it's one step forward, one step back. You might be making short progress, but to really move further and faster, you're going to need to focus so that you can build each skill session on top of the other. So that focus, and then I'd also encourage you to focus on the smallest components of that. So rather than going, okay, I want to get better at firelighting, see if you can pick a specific area. So run it over whatever period makes sense for you, a week, a month, a quarter, and go, okay, for this one, I'm going to work solely on flint and steel fires. And that might mean that you start off with a fire steel onto char cloth, so you can get used to using char cloth in a tinder bundle and blowing it into flame. And then you might go, okay, next week go practice sparks. So I'm going to try different steels, different shapes of steels, and just see if I can get consistent sparks every time. And then you might move, okay, this time I'm going to try and light the char cloth. And then you go, okay, char cloth paired with a bundle of bracken and cattail seed heads. Or I'm going to use dry grass and thistlehead, or just dry grass. And you can see you can break everything down into the smallest components, and that means you're laser focused. That means it's very much, you've reduced the variables, so it is very much in your control. You can go, okay, this is not working, what can I change? If you're just focusing on achieving an ember on a piece of char cloth, then you can start analyzing the quality of your char cloth. So going, okay, this fabric that I used to make this char cloth is too light a weave, it's not taking ember as well. Let me try a tighter knit fabric. Or this is too flimsy, or this is too coarse and the embers just aren't catching properly onto it. And you can start to narrow down where the points of failure. And then once you've built up that, once you can consistently get different types of char cloth, then you can start pairing it with tinder bundles. And then by the time you've got it through, you can add all of your components together and you've got a really good, robust skill set. So break it down to smallest components and focus is number one. Number two is make it easy. Now, like I said, a lot of us are very busy, so it's a bit like exercise. So a lot of people will change into running gear before going for a run. So it would make sense that if you're going to do a run first thing in the morning, is you prepare everything the night before, have all of your exercise clothing laid out, running shoes by the door, iPod or whatever you're using, if you're running with music, all charged, ready to go. So all you need to do is get in there. That reduces that barrier. That means your brain isn't working as hard. Summoning the willpower is, oh, where did I put my shorts, or okay, where do I put my socks? Okay, running shoes, they are in which cupboard? It's there. All you need is that willpower to put on the clothes and step out the door. And then that's half the battle. So it's the same thing with any other skills, bushcraft included. It's make it easy. Now, a great book that's introduced a lot of concepts along this line is Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's a very useful book on helping to build habits. And he talks a lot about making it as simple and easy as possible. So for me, if I'm practicing firelighting, I have a Kelly kettle set up, and it's in a box. I have the tinder there, I have whatever lighting material I'm using right now, I have the kindling already chopped, ready to go. So come my morning break, when I'm going to make myself a cup of tea or hot chocolate, then I can go straight out, grab the box, out the back door, and there we go. I can get started on firelighting. It makes it easy. I mean, if it's easy, it's more likely to happen. You're expending less willpower. That's it. That's actually, on an aside, that's the important concept, is that willpower is a finite resource. You only get so much a day, and it will depend on definite variety of variables, including how much sleep you've got, how many stresses you have in your environment, the food you're eating, everything affects the amount of willpower you have. But for everyone, it's finite. So what you want to do is you want to use the smallest amount of willpower, because the worst thing is running out of willpower at the end of the day, or before the end of the day, because then everything feels like an uphill struggle. So make sure you're making it as easy as possible to get out and do things, set things up ahead of time, make the plans, have your rucksack packed by the door, ready to leave in the morning or in the evening, have your kind of carving area set up with everything there so you can do a bit of carving after work. Make it easy. It's number 2. Number 3, it kind of combines the previous two. It talks about consistency. So number 3, keep it consistent. So if you really want to get further, it's better to have small pockets of time more consistently than one big pocket of time. So it's staying consistent. So if you can spend 15 minutes every day for a week, it'll beat that 1 hour on the weekend. You want to build up consistency so it also becomes a habit. And this is something that Cal Newport is really clear on, is that the work that you do needs to be consistent. If you're consistently going at it, making small progress, 1% progress every day is a massive jump by the end of a year. So rather than going, okay, I'm going to set aside this week to master bow drill, if you just go out and spend 10 minutes practicing with the bow drill set every day, I guarantee you'll get further. So make it consistent. One of the things that people often use in relation to habits is a chain. So they have a little calendar set up or a chart or a list, and basically every day that they do the particular habit that they're trying to create, so say going out for a run, meditating, eating good food, avoiding electronics after bedtime or whatever, just give yourself a little tick, and then you try and get as many ticks as in a row. And you just start building the consistency. You try not to break the chain. It starts working psychologically on you. It encourages you to, when you're having that kind of day where you're a little bit tired, you kind of like you don't feel like it, you can look up and you can go, oh look, I have a 13-day chain. If I just do today, I'll have done 2 weeks in a row. So just try and make those little components as consistent as possible. So for me, like I mentioned with my firelighting, I set myself a rule. If I want to have hot chocolate in the morning or tea in the morning, then it has to be boiled with a Kelly kettle. So it's an internal rule I made for myself. Said, okay, that means every morning you're going out and you're lighting a fire. Now I do give myself outs. If it's a particularly hard day, once a week or twice a week, I'll say, okay, I can use a lighter and some birch bark. But more often than not, I end up pushing and challenging myself. So keeping it consistent is really valuable. Number 4. Now, I've got Jilly at, I believe it's Urban Bushcraft, to thank for this one. Talked about setting an exam or a goal for the end, rather than exam. So if you have something you're working towards and you know that you will have to use these skills that you're developing, either in an exam or on a trip, it adds that level of motivation. Like, motivation for me last year was that cordage workshop, because I didn't feel like I had it 100% where I wanted it. I wasn't 100% confident. So I started pushing and started thinking more about how I can get faster. And there was that end date. You have to have it done by this. Whether it's a signing up to finally do the IOL competency certificate assessment, your forest school assessment, anything like that. As long as you have something at the end where you can go, okay, by this point I need to have reached X, or I need to be able to do Y. That is really valuable as a motivational tool. I mean, even if you don't have anything like that, try setting a bet with a friend or a colleague. Go, okay, if I don't achieve this, I will do X penalty, or if I do, I will receive Y. Just think about how you can motivate yourself. Now, the last, number 5, is learn from others. Now, this is the point where it's slightly self-serving, because I am running bushcraft courses and so on. But I would highly recommend, doesn't have to be me, going on a course and learning from someone else. This is the way to really accelerate your learning, and is probably the closest thing to a shortcut you'll ever get, because someone out there has made all of the mistakes already, has pushed through failures before, has built their skills consistently over a lifetime, and for the price of course fee, you can shortcut all of that work. You can have someone look over your shoulder and go, that bow drill doesn't, the way you're using that bow drill set doesn't sound quite right, try this. And in that, they've instantly solved maybe 2 or 3 hours of frustration, because they've been there before. It's standing on the shoulders of giants. Getting good books, reading good podcasts, watching good YouTube channels. These are ways to accelerate your learning, but an in-person course really is the most valuable, because it's a way for you to get direct feedback, and you can practice a skill and then get the feedback on it. So can't recommend it enough. If you really want to push things further, go on a course. So as we're coming to close, I just want to circle back to the original point I had with Cal Newport's book. When he was talking about deliberate practice, he was talking about a pushing of the boundaries. So it's not enough to practice that same skill that you already know how to do pretty well over and over. It's about extending yourself. So pushing the boundaries of what you're capable of. So You should be moving things out of your comfort zone and into your zone of advancement. This doesn't mean that you should get yourself dropped into the middle of the Scandinavian wilderness if you've only just learned how to use a fire steer. It's about just, again, those small increments, just pushing things a little bit further, setting yourself challenges, moving forward. That's what in Carl Newport's words separates people who are merely average in a profession to people who are at the top of the field or at the top of their profession. It's that idea of deliberate practice that pushes boundaries, that extends themselves every day and challenges themselves. And this is also the way you stay motivated. It's all about going, can I be a better person than I was the day before? Can I be better at this skill? How can I improve this? How can I look at it from a different direction? Can I use a different wood for my hearthboard? Can I try pairing the same wood, different woods? Can I see whether this long stringy plant plats well into cordage, because I've already done lime through to nettle? It's finding those places where you can extend your own learning forward without falling into the zone where you panic completely because you're completely out of your depth. So keep practicing and use deliberate practice. So just to review it again, the 5 ways to develop a consistent skills practice. 1. Break it down to the smallest components and focus on a single area. 2. Make it easy. Eliminate barriers. Really make it as simple as possible. 3. Keep it consistency. Consistency, say journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. It's cliche, but it works. How do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. I keep on telling myself that whenever I face a daunting goal, break it down, keep consistent, and focus. 4. Set an exam or endpoint or goal, or set a bet, create a challenge, and push yourself to achieve it. Number 5. Learn from others. Stand on the shoulders of giants and go on a course. So, I hope you've enjoyed this short podcast, and I hope this has helped you get in touch with what you can do to move your skills forward. And this applies to anything you want to do in life. Just keep it consistent, keep it real, and keep pushing forward. So I will say thank you for listening, and I'll be back next time with another podcast episode. Future, got some really cool podcast guests coming up in the next couple of months, so stay tuned. Until next time, take care.